thought I was playing? Huh.
Hello and welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, Hurricane Age here. A new show, a new topic, always related to health, a new guest. And today's guest is someone that's going to take us through some lifestyle enhancements and also talking about it. He's a health coach with a very diversified background and also an author of a book, and we'll talk about that today. He'll share with us something about 4 pillars of really living the life, or the good life, and we'll talk about them more. So again, I always start with no names, and people will like look at, can you tell us about this name? Well, of course I will. So Mathew Albracht, and he is actually with us today to share these values, and also he has some personal experience that got him into all this excitement in the last few years, and what drove him to write this book. So Mathew, how are you?
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Pleasure. Glad that you've accepted our invite and that you're here.
Yeah, it's exciting. Exciting to have the conversation.
Listen, well, we've had a nice little pre-show discussion. That was fun. But now we are on the air, and let's do this. So Mathew, first things first, as the tradition goes, can you tell us a little bit about your background? I know it's pretty diversified and it's pretty complex, and it's got a lot of good stuff. So juice us up. Give us the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Texas, and I now live in California, in Northern California, Oakland, and left Texas when I was in my early 20s, I think 2021, and just kind of wanted to explore the world, explore what life was about, learn about, what had meaning, and just kind of broaden my horizon. So I studied psychology, and I studied humanities and leadership in graduate school, and just started to immerse myself into the world of what it means to live a good life in all kinds of ways. Got excited about kind of politics and cultural change, and started doing a lot of activism, and spent years working in an organization called the Peace Alliance, helped found it with Marianne Williamson, who's a best-selling author and does a lot of other great work, including she ran for president. So did that for years, looking at a really holistic way of looking at how do we find peace in our lives, sort of from the Gandhian or Martin Luther King perspective of really being the peace we want to see in the world. And so part of that was always, how do we live peace in our own lives and create it in our own self? And so it was always looking at those questions, and culturally, obviously, with my activism work. And in 2015, when I was in my early 40s, I started to really reckon with my own health in particular. I can share a little bit with you about kind of my health journey and how I was struggling and transformed it if you want. But I started to make the connection between all this work I had done about creating peace, and in particular, nutrition and how like feeding my body well and getting it tuned in, and doing some other stuff around health. But nutrition was a big one in that moment that I hadn't put together with peace, kind of, and I started to quickly realize when I made these changes, like how important just feeding my whole, being was to creating peace in myself. And it sent off a lot of triggers of like, wow, what's going on with the world that we are, 70% of the culture is either overweight or obese, 40% are obese. These are United States statistics. 60% of people have one chronic disease, 40% have 2 or more. And those numbers are rapidly climbing. There's all these sort of culture-wide statistics that are not looking good. And we all pay for it individually, obviously, but we pay for it collectively as well with our healthcare system and the tremendous costs that has, and just not living good lives. So I started to really get like, oh, wow, like when I don't feel good, my brain doesn't feel good and my mood doesn't feel good.
Mhm.
And then I started to learn too, just how much nutrition impacts our psyche and our sense of emotional well-being, which I didn't really, and I guess I, at some level realized it, but I didn't get the depth of it. That was one of the big changes that happened when I started to dive into nutrition.
Wow.
So that's a kind of, that's an overview.
Well, that's pretty comprehensive.
Good.
A lot of stuff that we can extract from it. So
Yeah.
first thing is, well, you're right. I mean, I do have a very specific question about maybe define the health coaching concept in general.
Mhm.
But before that, I mean, you mentioned, world peace. You mentioned, inner peace. You mentioned like the
Mhm.
society we live in and the cultural, and the health, I guess impact that we have currently across, all different cultures. And specifically, the statistics you mentioned are pretty, alarming. Yeah,
Yeah.
and most of us, we go about our days and we don't put all the pieces together. Now
Right.
if you add the stuff that we're exposed to on day-to-day basis in terms of news, media, the world, the pandemic, your personal struggles at home, at work, and so on and so forth, that affects both psyche, mental, physical, all the
Right.
above. And also, you tie that into maybe habits of bad nutrition.
Right. Right.
Get a recipe of disaster, right? And and that's really where a lot of us would fall in. And so it's really it has to be a full package: mind, body,
Yes.
spirit,
Absolutely.
nutrition, hopefully less bad news, and because that negativity is spread to all
Yeah.
these things. So you get all these
Absolutely.
things that affect the people. And again, you mentioned you had some background in psychiatry
Psychology.
and, and you had also some of these human I guess factor of human rights, I think.
Yep. Humanities,
Humanities.
culture.
So you have all these aspects. So that means there's an intense understanding of all the intricate stuff that's out there, right?
Mhm.
In terms of
Mhm.
cultures and how we all relate. Now in the US, we are very diversified
Mhm.
as a country, and and it varies from state to state, but nevertheless, it is a
Right.
diversified country, and we have so many extremes in terms of lifestyles. And also health styles. so,
Yeah.
so you can go from like very healthy to no health, very wealthy to no health, and it's just and that may relate to a lot of other countries. I mean, I think that's pretty much
Yeah.
unique to the world today. But you're right, all these factors do impact how we will live, and lifestyle changes can impact us one way or the other, and specifically affect our health. Now,
Right.
obviously, our context here at the station and the radio is health, wellness, fitness, and it all ties in. And
Yeah.
health here is like everything, mind.
Absolutely. Mind, body, spirit.
That's right. I mean, it's a combo. You can't have one without the other, right?
Right. Right.
So Matthew, in your experience, first of all, if you don't mind, can you just tell us, and just bring to the audience a little bit more about what does a health coach do, and what does that mean? I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
it sounds simple, but I'm sure there's more to it than just what it sounds. So at least how does someone in this particular field, impact the
Mhm.
rest? And then we can
Yeah.
go like, in terms of your style and your approach and some of the things you've
Sure.
treated or help.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Well, there's you can imagine, as you can imagine, there's a lot of different approaches to health coaching,
Sure.
and different schools of thought and schools of training, et cetera. I particularly study functional medicine focused health coaching, and I from the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. And so that's kind of the track. And functional medicine is kind of a holistic approach at medicine. It's a little it's a lot more, I think, scientifically focused than, say, naturopaths or even integrative doctors. You have a lot of MDs who are really focused on like, how do we look at root cause of what's going on? So it's not just treating symptoms, right? They're treating like what's underneath the symptoms that's causing the symptoms in the first place, and let's tackle that, which is a little different than Western medicine. Western medicine's a little more symptom focused, right? Trying to abate symptoms with medications, et cetera. So the coaching kind of has that in the background, right? Like, how do we help people really cultivate deep health from the school of thought that I'm at? So I and the people I train with, we look at coaching as an opportunity for people to find support in their journey wherever they're at. It might be nutrition, but it also might be fitness, or it might be Stress is one of the biggest, stressors on our health. Or a whole host of things that, that people might tackle. So what we do is, and what I do is I talk to people, we'll do an intake, learn about what it is that their challenges are, what their strengths are, get a nice overview of where people are at, and we start to set goals together. And to really do it in a way that's realistic for oneself, not like, okay, I'm going to do 100 things, I'm going to do them all now, and then people dive in and often can't do it, and then fail a little bit, and then they get disappointed, and then they stop doing whatever the change is, whether it's fitness or nutrition, changing your diet. Too many people, when you do it on your own, it's hard to figure out, what do I do? Where do I look to start? And then setting goals that are realistic, so important. And it's great to have a partner. So that's kind of what a health coach is. It's like a partner in helping you design a system. And again, in whatever area you're looking at, I love nutrition, so I almost always work on that as a big component. But just to look at, what do we need to do to make a better life, and then setting goals together. I can certainly provide lots of information and resources and education, and some accountability. But it's not about what I think people should do. It's about where they're at and what they want to do. So any good coach is going to really be focused with you on what it is that you're wanting to change in your life. And sometimes people aren't quite sure. They know they don't feel good, or there's specific issues they want to tackle. And we can look through those and together kind of come up with some ideas about what to do and how to step into it in a way that feels realistic and empowered for oneself.
So Mathew, that's pretty powerful stuff. But now the question is, how is it, do you find that there are a lot of people seeking the help? One,
yes and no. Kind of more no, in the sense that I don't think people really know the support's out there. Unfortunately, we, in our Western kind of healthcare model, again, it's more symptom abatement. And so whether it's the healthcare industry, et cetera, they don't put a lot of support yet, although this is changing, which is cool, into helping people to learn how to live healthier lifestyles. And so a lot of folks can't afford it. They can't afford a health coach. They're stretching as it is. And then I don't think a lot of people even know that there's that kind of support out there. I know people have heard of dietitians, and that's a very specific kind of look at food, but it's less around like that really holistic support of how do you move forward, not just get information and get education, which is of course a critical piece of it. Like, what's healthy food? I really kind of don't even know. That's a piece of it. But then it's also like having a partner and really moving towards it. So I think a lot of people would love that. I don't think they know how to access it. A lot of, from people I've talked to and what I've looked at it, I don't think a lot of people know it's accessible, and sometimes it's not really affordable because it's mostly out of pocket. But I think of it as a really powerful investment, because when you feel better, you operate better and you function better, and you can produce more if you need to. And I think it's a really good way to invest something into your life that will pay off for the rest of your life. And not to mention, like, healthcare costs are skyrocketing as we age, and many of us are getting sicker and sicker, as I said earlier. And so the more we can invest in like cultivating health, the less we have to spend on all that as time goes by. So I think it is a worthy investment. Does that answer your question?
Oh, it did definitely. And also it brought, a little bit more information to the concept, because, for one, we've had psychoanalysts, psychotherapists, dietitians, but you're like in between those two buffers,
across weaving together.
Exactly. So it's something that, people need to know that and be aware that it exists and what it does. And so, because there are people that may want to not go to a psychiatrist, and maybe not, I can do my own nutrition, but sometimes they just don't know what to do. And maybe this,
right.
We get a personal trainer for fitness, we can get a dietitian to help us on our, food habits. And maybe now we can get someone that can help us across the spectrum here.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Then the question is, so you said the cost is not attainable. And so
Well, for some people, I mean, I was using it as one example for why for some people it's not as accessible because, it's mostly out of pocket expenses. Some businesses now, some big corporations will give funding to people who do health programs and things like that. And there are some healthcare, some insurance companies who are starting to invest more and allow people to get some preventative care. And some kind of more of the alternative ones have health coaching as an option on there.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm asking is that I want to, if anybody's listening, anybody can get through it. It's just that you have to find a way to get, the funding to it and stuff. But I mean, it can be available. Obviously, some folks may have it more readily than others. But at the end of the day, depending on your income levels and stuff like that, there might be other resources that can, and believe it or not, sometimes where you have some government programs that may be also covered, I think, through some of the programs that they have.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's not really like not acceptable, accessible. It is accessible. You just have, to find a way. And
and just I'll say this because we're on the point of people who that finances might be an issue. Like there are a lot of like the training programs that I was in. And there's hundreds of coaches that are constantly being trained. Student coaches. They have like free. You can, if you go to these websites like the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy and others, they'll offer like 10 free sessions to, with a newly trained coach, and you're still getting great information. These people are getting a lot of good training and data. So there's lots of fun ways that you can still find support.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I was trying to say. Like, there are ways to do this, at a no cost or low cost, and hope,
Absolutely.
Anyone, and to your degree, whatever you want to be, I mean, you can invest in it, or you can at least, find some ways that are less costly. But at the end of the day, that would work. So thank you for that. And so now we understand the concept. We understand that it's available. We understand pretty much everybody can use it. Because at the end of the day, we all can, we all have perceptions of how we live.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a very strong word, stress.
Yeah.
Stress is something of this new world that we live in.
It is.
The new world is really stressful, and it's designed that way. You get up in the morning, you're thinking work, you're thinking making ends meet, paying the bills, this, that, the other. It's like, you got this, you got this, you got pressures, right? And so all these factors are challenging for us. So what would be some of the tips to help people, and we're not doing a session here, but some of the advice you would give, like, to circumvent, I guess, the stress levels, or at least reduce. What would you say to that?
Well, there's a lot of things I think folks can do. I'll kind of start at the top tier. First of all, if you can get support, particularly like there's great therapists, for example, who can really help people kind of work through what is it that's driving the stress, or what are some tools and resources you can cultivate to get it down, particularly people who are dealing with trauma, or, things that are kind of like baked in from childhood. That you're going to need more support to work through that, because some of it's, what we're learning in neuroscience is a lot of these patterns of stress and trauma get neurally wired into your brain and your limbic system, and become these sort of self-fulfilling patterns that make it hard to get out. But there's brilliant people working, and lots of great resources to pull yourself out of that. So that's kind of like the big picture level. Now, as you said, like work and family and raising kids, there's lots of just regular stressors that, maybe otherwise you're doing great, but, that toll of just, running the machine and running the mill. I do, for example, yoga is my favorite, right? So I do a lot of breath work and engaged in the yoga, and I'll do 20 minutes, I'll do 40 minutes a day. I always make sure I get that in, because it just really brings down my body systems. And I'm a little ADD, probably more than a little. But so meditation's great. For me, it's a little hard to get myself to sit still and meditate, although I'm getting better at it the more I keep my practice going and doing my yoga, etc. So I love yoga because I can engage multiple things, get a little fitness into, do a lot of breath work. It's very calming and centering. Mindfulness and meditation practices, of which there is a whole host of stuff. It's not just the sitting with your legs crossed, quieting the mind, trying to empty your mind of thought. That's kind of a form of meditation, but there's so many more that are much different than that. So, there's all these apps on the smartphones now, like Headspace and Calm, which are great resources to just have guided meditations where people are taking you through this thing to help you calm and center yourself, get your heart rate down, get your heart rate variability down, which is this whole other thing that people can do to sort of monitor and mind map. I do things like binaural beats, which are these very curious thing when you put headphones in your ear and there's a tone coming into one ear is at a certain hertz, and then in the second ear it's at a slightly different hertz, and that literally it helps you retrain your brain. It kind of resets some of the neural stuff I was talking about earlier, where you can get when you're just used to those stress patterns. And it's a great way to kind of add to a mindfulness practice that the research is showing it helps boost you without having to do that much extra work. You're doing these binaural beats. Sometimes when I'm going on a walk, which is another way to reduce stress, like get yourself, obviously exercise and fitness in general are a really good way to de-stress and kind of burn that energy off your body. But even like a walk in nature, which is shown, tons of research shows that being in nature, whether it could be your street with trees and just paying attention to the natural world around you. It could be a beautiful hike in a forest. But I will not only get the benefit of that, I might have the binaural beats going in my ears while I'm out walking in nature, and there's beautiful, sound. You don't just have to hear these tones. You can have music and nice stuff going.
So is that like two different, like you have two different sounds coming in, like maybe
Yeah. It's soft. It's like in one ear, there's, whatever hertz. I don't know hertz very well, like 700 hertz. And this ear, it's 750 hertz. And something about the two, you have to have headphones on because it needs to trick your brain. If you're listening on speakers, it all blends together. But when it's here, it's like it's going in this ear one and this ear another, and it's tricking your brain to calm down.
So it's like almost listening to two programs at the same time, which your brain has to adjust, right? I mean, I'm just kind of
it's not disorienting, by the way, and that sounds like it might be disorienting, but it's because it's just these little tones. They're soft and they go in. And again, you can, like, I have an app, gosh, what's it called? I have it in my book and on my website. But it's a binaural beats app, and you can use your music library, or they have like ocean sounds or forest sounds or frog sounds, so it's nice. And if you're on a walk, you don't even have to think much about it. It's kind of lovely.
Sweet. Well, that's an excellent tip. I mean, I'm going to try that.
Yeah. The other thing I would say too is breath work. I am such an advocate for just doing breath work, taking lots of deep breaths. There's practices like box breathing and the 4-7-8, where you take in a deep breath hold it for 4 seconds, or excuse me, take in a deep breath for 4 seconds, hold it for 7, and then release it for 8. And you just do this cycle. Box breathing is similar. It's just 4, it's 5, 5, 5, and 5. You can Google any of those and go find great videos on YouTube and stuff. That is like the number one way to calm myself down. And, we've all heard about take a deep breath if we're stressed out. And sometimes when you're really wired up, taking a deep breath, it kind of doesn't matter. It's hard to get out of that stress moment but when you practice it regularly, especially when you practice it when you're not in your highest peak stress, your body starts to learn that rhythm of the deep breathing. And then when you're stressed and you do it, it helps. Like it helps a lot. And sometimes I'll do it for 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on what's going on. And I can really tune my body down and get it calm. So I just had to throw the breath work in too.
No, well, listen, I'm gonna have to try that.
It's great.
I just as a practice, because I mean, it's all, I mean, it adds up. I mean, to your point, I mean, there's nature, the music, the calm, but when you put all this together as a strategy,
right,
with fitness, workout, and all the other stuff, maybe I think that's going to help a lot of the folks that are listening. And and by the way, take it for what it's worth. I mean, we got someone here with us today that knows this stuff well enough. And, we're not losing anything. We can test it out, in real life, and just follow this.
Absolutely.
And we can get all that excitement. And if it works, hey, at least that's something that we got from this particular exchange here. So,
Absolutely.
Matthew, you mentioned four pillars. Well, we talked about four pillars
Yeah.
and of lifestyle. So let's expand on that. And I think those
Good.
are your hard, your four core elements that you use in your, I guess, approach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let me say a couple of things. First of all, just on all that stuff we've been talking about, it was a lot of data, so I know anybody who's listening might go, "Wow, that's a lot of stuff. Where do I find the research?" That was interesting. You can Google any of those terms. Also on my website, which is nourishyourselfwhole.com, I've got a whole resource section with great books, great podcasts, great apps, great
Sweet.
YouTube links and stuff. So people can find that if that feels overwhelming. And then I wrote a book called Nourish Yourself Whole, which is a guide to core nutritional pillars with achievable steps for vibrant health. And so the four pillars that you just mentioned are a part of that book. In my coaching, I might do even more than the four pillars. But what I did with this book was try to home in on the most impactful things you can do uh, to get healthier, especially where nutrition is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that people can and should do, and over time, as you learn, hopefully you'll do them. But these four pillars are really like the core, most highly leveraged things that you can implement in your diet. And I'll list them, and then we can talk more about them specifically. But the first is, it's not rocket science, it's eat a whole foods diet. So the closer to the really source of the food, the healthier. The cultures that live the longest and are the healthiest eat more whole foods and less processed, hyper palatable foods that are addictive and troubling for our body. We didn't evolve eating that kind of stuff. So that's the first one. That's a really important one. And that's I call it the foundational pillar, because if you even just did that as much as you could, you're going to get a lot better. And some of these others are a part of it. Go ahead.
Just on that note, so people might say, well, Whole Foods, that sounds organic, expensive. Is that a reality or is that a myth? I mean, you could potentially eat healthy without costing an arm and leg.
Absolutely. We're not talking Whole Foods of the store, which is an arm and a leg, which I love Whole Foods, but it is very expensive to go there sometimes. No, it's so organic is great. I don't want to diss organic, because pesticides, environmental toxins are such a rough part of what makes us unhealthy. But you don't have to eat organic. And by the way, I'll say this first. So Environmental Working Group is this great organization, and they have like a list of they call it the clean 15 and the dirty 15. These are like fruits and vegetables and other food products that are the cleanest and are the dirtiest. So like the cleanest are things like, I can't do the list in my head right now, but I actually have, I could read it off later. But these are like the foods that you wouldn't have to get organic because they hardly have any pesticides. And then the dirtiest, unfortunately, things like strawberries and cucumbers are things that they have they find really highly amounts of pesticides. So there are some things that you can get away without organic, and some things that like look for it when you can. So Whole Foods, it's like, by the way, Whole Foods are the perimeter of your grocery store, right? So the middle is where you're going to find most of your processed foods, things that are packaged that can sit on the shelf for months and months and stay good, and sit in your cabinets and stay good, that have all kinds of chemicals in them to keep them, preservatives and things. You might read the label and you're going to see all these things you probably can't pronounce. When I recorded the audiobook, I had listed a lot of these chemicals, and I didn't think about this. And as I'm reading the audiobook, I'm like trying to read these words, and I couldn't get them out of my mouth. I was like, I don't know if I pronounce this right. But that's the kind of stuff you want to dodge. And really, a lot of that's expensive, because when you're buying these packaged products, you're paying for all those marketing fees that they do, that you see all the commercials for the cereals or the corn chips or the whatevers. But when you go on the perimeter of the store and you've got all your vegetables and your fruits, and you've got dairy, you've got, meats if you're not vegan, even some baked goods, although we'll talk about some problem with baked goods in a sec. Those are the things that you can find a variety of prices on. And it does take a little more work to prepare your own food rather than, getting these prepackaged things. But you know, I don't know how much, we probably can't get into it today, but I certainly have a lot of stuff in my book about how people can maximize time, and health coaches will always help you work on that. You know, there are cool things like people make sheet pan meals. So on a Sunday, they might cut up several days worth or even a week's worth of their food, like cut their vegetables, you know, spend 2 hours prepping stuff for the week. And then you put it in, and I like to use the Pyrex glass containers and just stack them up in your fridge. And then you literally, when you get home, you can dump that pre-prepped thing onto a sheet pan, stick it in the oven, and everything cooks at the same amount of time. You save time, you're getting something really healthy and delicious. You can do that for lunch. You can make these mason jar salads. You get a big mason jar, and you, again, on a Sunday, you can layer these salads with like protein and nuts and seeds and, you know, vegetables and lettuces, leftover, whatever. And then all you do is you pour in a dressing, a healthy dressing, and shake it up, and you have it at lunch at work. I mean, so there's all kinds of stuff that fresh vegetables aren't that expensive. I mean, it depends on who you are. Of course, I'm talking from a more privileged place if I have some money, but most people can afford at least to get fresh vegetables and fruits and things, and just about making the time to prepare it. So just one more thing, anything that has more than 5 ingredients on the label, generally speaking, is not a whole food. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. There are, if you do have an okay amount of financial resources, there are some really cool companies. Like if you go to Whole Foods, the grocery store, or any other health food store, who are making these kind of alternatives to traditional processed foods. Like, you know, I like my occasional cookies and chips and things like that. But for example, my favorite chip when I occasionally, you know, want a corn chip is called Siete. It's a company, and they make cassava, which is the yucca root. They use this cassava flour, which is very low glycemic. For people who don't know what that means it doesn't spike your blood sugar, which is the cause of a lot of health problems. That's one of my pillars, which I'll talk about in a sec. But they make it out of cassava, which doesn't spike your blood sugar, and then they fry it in avocado oil, which is a much more stable oil to fry something in. Nothing's great fried, but it's much better than these industrial seed oils that are oxidized easily and cause free radicals in your body and cause cancer and heart disease. So you can find these cool alternative things, or cookies made out of almond flour. Chocolate chip cookies I make all the time when company comes over, and nobody, if I didn't tell them it was almond flour, they would think it was a regular yummy chocolate chip cookie. Like, so there's fun tricks, like too, so when I say Whole Foods, I don't want people to go, oh, well, I'm going to eat like vegetables and fruit. And, you know, there's plenty of ways to find cheats that are much healthier, you know.
Well, or you can make your own as well. I mean, you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I make some, they have mixes, or I buy them, you know, those frozen cookie logs that you see in the grocery stores, traditional, and you just cut them and then stick them in and bake them. They have those with almond flour now, you know, and less sugar. Nice. Or maple syrup or coconut sugar, things that are a little bit better than standard refined table sugar.
So Matthew, thank you for all those nice tips. I wanted to comment on something. We notice, I mean, today's society, you talking about Whole Foods, and traditionally people that live on the farmland or even in the villages and things like that, over the years and centuries, they tend to eat natural chicken, right, natural everything, right? Absolutely. Now we're conditioned to buying food from supermarket for the most part. Some people actually go to the farmer's market and things like that, but we tend to go to what's available in supermarkets. But that's one aspect. But then we have the tendencies now to rush to go to work, to do things, and people sometimes eat unhealthy because they just want to shove stuff because they're hungry, and you know, or they turn to microwavable stuff. That's exactly. Then we also have the tendencies of people eating out all the time, or you know, like takeout stuff, which would be like high MSG, high, you know, salt and all the stuff, oily and all this stuff. I think those are some of the bad habits that we've kind of basically adopted over the years, and now they're part of our lifestyle. And I think that's a challenge. So to your point, it's not about going and buying whole food from Whole Food. You're just eating natural, you know, cook home, as opposed to just going out there and just buy ready. And we tend to be lazy too. And I see it more in the generation. Like, again, I got kids. We have salads and stuff that are homemade, and they still want pizza and
Right.
That's a problem. And I see it more in the new generation than ever. It's like they eat everything that is not really healthy. Well, I won't generalize, but at least in my surrounding, I haven't seen them, loving, some of the healthy salads and the natural stuff. They really want the pre-made stuff, which is not a good thing. So I mean, I think I just, the reason I made that comment is just to add to that value, because, we can do this, and we can change, one piece of our daily lives, which is going to help us, to your point, maybe avoid some of these ingredients that harm our bodies.
Absolutely. And, as you were saying that stuff, it's like the stress is what drives a lot of these habits, right? Because we're just like, this culture has gotten kind of insane with like how fast we have to move, how much is going on, how much we have to work now to make ends meet. Two parents, if people are lucky enough to have, be together and have two parents, both have to work. As we were evolving, we had a whole community working together to make sure we got food and we ate, and preparation, even in, maybe not quite our lifetimes, but like certainly our parents' lifetimes, there was often just a one income household, and whoever stayed home, often, a woman could prep food and somebody else would go out and work. And that's shifted, and in many ways that's a good thing, but we got to bring it back to the center of how do we take these practices that are going to make ourselves and our kids healthier together. And a lot of the research is showing is when kids actually cook with you, like when you weave them into the process of prep, they get excited to eat what they're making, right? Because and start them young. I mean, little kids can help you prep stuff. That's a good way to get them motivated to eat the whole foods and eat better stuff when they're engaged in that process. And if they're going to have a pizza and you have the resources to do it, get an almond flour pizza crust and, put fresh make a pizza together. You know what I mean? But just a healthier pizza with fresh whole ingredients rather than, whatever your favorite pizza store is that may or may not have a lot of junk on it.
Well, you're right. I mean, at home, we do. My wife does make some mean pizza.
Oh, good.
Naturally made, but like the kids, for example, would not have it. They would rather get the regular delivery pizza, and with the marinara sauce and and whatever cheese they have. Otherwise, on our case, we can make it fresh, and it's fresh tomatoes, and it's. But you're right. It's getting people to see that value and taste it. And I've grown, into when I was a kid. That's what my mom used to make. It's fresh. Yeah. We didn't order pizza. We just made pizza. And of course we're not Italian, so it's not going to be Italian style. but it's still pizza. It's still the crust. It's still the juice. And you can put some nice ingredients on it. And but you're right. It's just a matter of how you do this. And you mentioned something about lifestyle and like the workplace today. Crazy. Two people working. It's hard. But you also gave the idea of prepping everything in advance. You could actually do this stuff, in intervals. I do it, my wife does it, vice versa. One day in, one day out. I cook, she cooks, whatever. But at the end, that's if it's a family of two. But if it's you're single, you can still do that. You take up your prep, and you do. So there are ways to do this. Just discipline, I think.
Discipline and learning how to do it. Yeah,
it's discipline and really the will. And understand that it's for you. It's not for anything else. Yes, you can eat junk. You can eat whatever you want. And also, I think in the long run, it saves you money, because when you buy stuff, it's expensive. When you cook, you probably can save some money. It costs you to buy the ingredients, but I think it's cheaper than if you actually get a meal, or two meals out from the street.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier about, this like early on in the conversation about stress and how do we calm the stress down. I think of cooking as a mindfulness practice. So, I'll put on some nice music, whatever I'm in the mood for. I might even catch up on an episode of The Voice, which is my guilty, pleasure. And I just make the prep sometimes I'm in a hurry, whatever, but I try to make the prep kind of a sacred experience where I'm just like really bringing my attention and awareness to what I'm doing. I might be chopping some oregano or cutting up some vegetables or sauteing something or whatever. So I find it a way to allow myself to de-stress. Now, I don't have kids, I know but I'm just saying that there's a way to look at even cooking, that it's not just about saving money, which you said, it is all the things you said, and it can be a calming experience too.
It is. I've tried it. I actually, believe it or not, I mean, although I'm not uh, acceptable in the kitchen these days,
Right. Right.
I have to keep the boundaries out. I can't get into the kitchen.
Yeah.
But when I do have a chance to be there, I enjoy it, and I still make some mean stuff, but
good.
but
That's
I try.
great.
But you're right. When you're there, you enjoy it. Again, it's all about enjoying things. You do that. You throw the music,
Yeah,
fun,
absolutely.
and and it's good.
Yeah,
Uh,
and a couple of other things, I talk about all this in the book, but there's things like these meal prep delivery services now where they'll do like all the chopping of everything for you and meal planning for you and with you. So if you have the financial resources, do it, but you can have, and they deliver it once or twice a week. And then so you've got a lot of, like, they have step-by-step instructions. Things are chopped up for you. All the ingredients come in the box, and then you can make the food. So it's a time saver. And then there's things like the pressure cookers, and Instant Pot is a brand that I love. And it makes cooking quick and easy. You can put everything in this pressure cooker.
mhm.
The pressure cooker cooks it all at the same time, really quick, usually 10, 15, 20 minutes to finish the cooking. You just chop stuff up, throw it in. And it's surprisingly amazing, tastes amazing when you learn cool recipes and stuff. So there's all kinds of ways to make this work. I just wanted to add a few more in.
No, I appreciate it. And again, I think to the listeners, I mean, you got a lot of tips today on eating healthy, and it's just it's just a bonus of the episode here. So I think it's all good. I'm learning a few things, and I probably will seek some of these sites and places. And so, hey, listen, take advantage of whatever we hear here. So
Yeah.
so that brings us, that was the first pillar, or at least a component. So what other things that
Yeah.
you actually highlight in the book?
Well, so the pillar 2 that I have in the book is reduce sugar and refined carbs. Sugar and simple sugar and refined carbohydrates, like breads and grains and flours that are highly milled and processed, are highly inflammatory in the body. When we eat a lot of sugar, which is not the way we ate as we evolved. For example, 200 years ago, say, the average person ate about 2 pounds of sugar a year. And now we're up to about 152 pounds of sugar a year. We didn't evolve with as much of this. When you eat sugar, it turns to glucose in your body, which is a way to provide energy. But when you eat too much of it, it spikes. Insulin is people have probably heard of it because of diabetes and stuff. Insulin is a hormone that regulates the glucose in your body and how it works. And when you get too much, our insulin, we don't have enough of that hormone to regulate it. So all kinds of problems happen. You get inflammatory responses. It stores in your body as body fat when it doesn't know what to do with it, when it can't, shuffle it out. And if you're susceptible, you can create diabetes, pre-diabetes, all kinds of problems, heart disease, cholesterol, all this stuff comes from sugar. Cholesterol actually doesn't come from fat or cholesterol in foods. It does a little bit from bad fats, not healthy fats though, but it comes from too much sugar. So I talked a lot about why we need to reduce these highly refined sugars in our diet to keep the inflammation down. So that's a big one and an important one. And there's all kinds of, alternatives and cool thing. I'm about, like, I know myself, and I know other people well enough to know that when we have our cravings for particular things, sugar is very addictive in particular. And so we're gonna cave at times. And so I have lots of fun alternatives on my website and in the book about, like, favorite cheats that aren't as bad, that don't spike your blood sugar as much, or their alternatives and that kind of stuff. So that's a big pillar, an important one. And I'm not talking about complex carbohydrates, which are in like vegetables and whole grains and even whole fruit. Those are things that can be good for us and are important. Like, we need some glucose in our body to survive and thrive and do what we need to do. But it's important to keep that down. And then pillar 3 is to eat good fats and ditch bad fats. And my generation grew up hearing a major fallacy, which was that fat is evil and we should avoid it at all costs. And that's so untrue. And the research bears it out now. Even the USDA just upgraded the food pyramid to call for more servings of fat a day. But we're not talking about, so industrial seed vegetable oils, which is like canola, sunflower, safflower, corn, soy, there's a list of them. That we thought were kind of healthy, like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we were told like, Wesson and margarine and all these things were a much better alternative than whole food-based fats. Mm-hmm. And what we now learn is they're actually highly inflammatory again. They oxidize easily. They create free radicals in our body, which are the root cause of things like cancer, one of the main root causes of things like cancer. And so what we're talking, again, it's back to this whole foods thing, is fats like, good fats like, say, olives or olive oil or avocado oil, nuts and seeds, even things like if you eat meat, like pasture raised, grass fed animal fat can be good, which is a lot higher. And people might have heard of omega-3 fats, which we hear a lot about because fish can be a healthy part of a good healthy fat. There are a lot of important and healthy fats that we need to be eating, and they also energize our body. Fat, all of our cells are surrounded, for example, by saturated fat, even though people are scared of that. The neural synapses in our brain, that every function in our brain, all of that synapse goes through fat. So we need fat to live well, but these horrible industrial seed vegetable oils that are very inflammatory mess up all the body processes. So we want to clean that up, get those out, and bring in good, healthy, high quality, whole food-based fats. And again, the cultures like the Mediterranean diet we hear a lot about, which is a lot of olives and olive oil and things like that. They have some of the longest lifespans and the lowest health troubles in the world. So that's pillar 3. And then pillar 4 is kind of another no-brainer. It's indulge in a rainbow of vegetables and some fruit too. Fruit and vegetables are just loaded with nutrients from things we know about, like vitamins and minerals, but they are also loaded with phytonutrients and antioxidants that are so critical to our health, and some carbohydrates too for energy. They're not just vitamins and minerals. You get energy from fruits and vegetables too, and you want to get the bulk of your plate. You want to see those veggies in particular. Fruit to a lesser degree because there is sugar, and so again, depending on who you are and what you do. Like if you're like you and you do a lot of fitness stuff and you're working out, you can handle probably quite a bit more sugar than somebody who's not, or who has maybe a genetic predisposition to diabetes and that kind of stuff. But anyway, fruit's still great. It's full of fiber, and the fiber helps slow down the sugar breakdown. But you want your plate to look like that. These phytonutrients and antioxidants are the cure for what I was mentioning in these free radicals that can be formed by the bad fats and to some extent sugars. They literally grab free radicals in our body and shuffle them out. So they're the immediate antidote to some of the things that cause most of modern diseases. We actually didn't evolve with a lot of heart disease and cancer until the last few hundred years, as we started to get into these more agrarian, industrial, agricultural systems, where we started shifting more towards like breads and refined carbs that are problematic to our health. But a great way to really just kind of boost your overall health is just add a few extra servings of vegetables in, or a little fruit. Eat as much as you can do. And the different colors of fruit all have different phytonutrients, and they do different things for your body and your health. So that's why I say a rainbow, because it's great to just mix up all those colors and make a good health. So those are the 4 pillars. Some of them are a little obvious, but I do talk a lot more about kind of the why and how these things impact your body directly. And as I always love to say, and I think you said this at the beginning or maybe in the pre-talk, it's about stepping into this. It's not like you have to be perfect and, oh, if I don't do everything 100%, it's not going to work. Every step you take towards increasing these things is going to help. So if you're eating, say, 10 servings of refined carbs a day, let's say you have your cereal for breakfast or your bagel, you've got a big sandwich for lunch with a big piece of bread on it, you can have some corn chips with it, maybe in the afternoon have some more corn chips as a snack, and then you have dinner and you got a big roll and some pasta, and then you got your dessert too, your sweet cakes or whatever it is with the sugar. Let's say you're at that point and you are addicted. Sugar is a dopamine. It signals your dopamine receptors in your brain, which makes us addicted. But if you're at 10 a day, make a goal of going down to 8 a day for a few weeks. Just keep seeing if you can chip away at that, if that's your big thing. Or if you're, the fat's an easier one, because you don't have to not have any kind of fat. You just need to get the good in and take the bad out. And the processed foods, unfortunately, have a lot of the industrial seed oils. But, so if you do that, you're going to help yourself. But you can still have rich, satiating, delicious, hearty food. You just have to know where to target it and know what to do and know how to mix it in. And you're going to, have your dessert craving, switch it to something that's healthier, that still tastes really good. But baby step in. You don't have to do this all at once. Every step you take, you're going to feel better and your body's going to start to function better. And as it functions better, your motivation increases too, because you feel better, you look better, your brain starts to work better, and it makes it easier and easier to make these changes.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of good advice. And it's funny because what you state in here is somewhat obvious, but we just don't practice it. And you just hit on a few items there that are important to realize. One is moderation in things. I mean, you can have a little bit of everything, and you can still not, eliminate everything. Just substitute things with healthier things, right?
Right.
I think that's a very easy thing to do. There are three things I want to highlight, at least to have a little bit of an exchange on. One is the age groups, because people at different age groups may think that they're invincible, right? When you're younger, you eat everything, your body's still gonna process everything. The organs are still functioning at optimal levels, right? So you're good. But as you age, I mean, your body is not responsive the same way, and then you would have already kind of utilize your body's functions, in a higher speed. So your response rate will get lesser and lesser, just like a car, right? You buy a new car, you could, it's funny. If you go and buy a used car, and the analogy is going to sound funny here, and you buy it from maybe someone that is a younger age that really explored that car and really destroyed it, you will probably have problems with it. And you can buy someone that had, an older, person that had it in the garage, took care of it, only drove it nicely, changed the oil, and that car is still mint. And it may be 30 years old car, it still runs like sweet. And so it's the same thing as the body, right? If the body is out there and you're really destroying it in early stages, 10, 15, 20 years, you get to 30, 40, things are not working out.
I know.
Liver is not as good, everything. And we tend to do that. And I think this message more for the younger folks that, it's going to be costly to do anything, food, medicine, everything. It's getting worse and worse over the years. And the cost today is not what it used to be 10 years or 20, 30 years ago. So that's going to be there. But if you don't take care of yourselves today, or at least be aware, then things are going to be worse, in the future. So that's just a message there for folks that are like in the younger age and they're like, I got this, I'm invincible. Well, you're invincible today, maybe not later. So just be aware of that and do the right thing by yourself today. Don't deprive yourself from what you want and what you like, but just understand what the dynamics are.
Absolutely.
And I think the other piece that I wanted to talk about is cultures. So now we have various cultures, and each culture has its own food, likings. I mean, everybody's got their own stuff. Some, use fries, some, fried food, some use like sweet food, like in our culture, there's a lot of honey and almonds. It's very sweet. Everything is sweet. Our teas, I'm originally from Morocco. I mean, Moroccan tea is like the sweetest thing you can have. It's like it's almost honey liquid. I mean, honey is liquid.
Right.
This is like a water that is so sweet. It's not even funny, but it's again and a lot of carbs in the and some cultures are rice based, right? So a lot of rice. So those are things that also, and you can have all of this. I think based on what you stated, none of this can be eliminated. It doesn't have to be eliminated. It just have to be monitored correctly and substituted correctly. And we can be enjoying our food and our cultures, in the right way. So again, that's just an
So,
opinion,
yeah.
and hope that people, can take it for what it's worth. And if you do care about yourself, I mean, we owe it to ourselves to really live a healthy life as long as we live, and less complications, because when you get sick, it's not fun, right? And
Right.
you have complications, it's not fun. My mom is diabetic. Trust me, it's not fun.
Right.
She has to
Yeah.
regulate everything, and she has to intake, all her insulin stuff, sugar spikes. You got to watch what you.
Mhm.
It becomes a more problematic status, on the long run. So hopefully, understanding the dynamics here, let's really follow some of these things. And again, I mean, it's an opinion. We're not enforcing this on anyone. If you like, you hear it, it sounds right. It's not even rocket science. It's something that's common sense. Use it. Matthew, I mean, those are some real good lifestyle. I
Mhm.
think basic elements that we all should be aware of, and sometimes we just don't pay mind to. And the other thing now I was going to ask you, so what do you think? I mean, obviously this is all good, but then you have forces against this. I mean,
Right.
yeah, restaurant industries, you have manufacturing industries, food industries, fast food industries, marketing. These are all things that can almost work anti, health in a way. But I mean, some
Right.
people may say, well, that's not true. We do the right thing. People have the right to be. Yes, and we're not against businesses, flourishing and making making the money and grow and all this stuff. It's just that a lot of, the controversy is, it's business, it's economy, and so those are some of the I guess the balances that are in play here that are
Right.
sometimes tricky. How do we
Yeah.
maintain an economy? How do we maintain industries and yet keep healthy? Because a lot of these industries thrive based on these foods, but now if they're not good, then we're gonna have a problem. So
Right. Yeah, well, there's so many layers to that comment and question. It's tricky. First of all, for business, we see all these, the sort of organic health food industry is booming by the tune of tens of billions of dollars in growth over the last couple of decades. So there's certainly money to be made in healthy foods, and I think advocacy always has to be a part of, I think, everyone's lives. We have to learn and then start to push and promote the things that really work for society as a whole. So where food is concerned, we in the United States, I don't know where people will be watching this, but in the US, we subsidize. So the government subsidizes a lot of these unhealthy products, in part because of the lobbying of the big food companies and the restaurant industries, et cetera. And in part just because we're on old science and the new science is showing very different things that are healthy. And so we could be, so it kind of props up the unhealthy stuff and makes it more affordable and makes it, you have all this advertising money funneling at us constantly, and the ads saying eat this, eat this, eat this, and it's like there's only so many pizza commercials you can see and not go, oh, I'm going to go to pizza. So I think, we need to all get educated and start to push policymakers to say, hey, let's actually prop up healthy food because it's going to help everybody. It's going to save billions, if not trillions, in healthcare costs, which we all have to collectively pay for. We're going to feel better, and we're going to be able to make these choices better. So I think that's part of it. Is we got to kind of pay attention and start to push our elected officials to support the things that are more nourishing, so we can do it. But I think ultimately we have to take personal responsibility and just get informed. So there's that cacophony of voices coming at us that you described perfectly, of all these outside, factors. So get educated, learn about what good food is, learn about, so when the stuff comes at you, you can go, no, that's not quite right. Or yeah, it looks fun or whatever, but I'm not going to make that choice today, maybe tomorrow, you know that's, I think, the main thing that we can do is just get informed and make sure that we're trying to do the best we can to feed our whole self what it needs, not just kind of what these outside forces are propping up. Because the good news too is even a lot of these food companies, the big ones we all hear about, the Procters and Gambles and Kellogg's and all that, they're starting to shift. They're starting to offer more healthy products as they learn people are wanting it and starting to promote it. So we're seeing changes, which is encouraging. But we're going to have to tackle it in a much more profound and holistic way.
well, listen, I mean, we're about the end of the show here, and I think we've had a lot of real intense and really good insights here on behaviors, lifestyles, and eating healthy and even living healthy in a way, because
Yeah.
just feeding some of these concepts that you just shared with us today would be an awesome thing, and they will have impact on each and everyone that's listening, or at least applying some of them, if not all. And so the book is available, right?
Yep.
And
It's out. It's mostly on Amazon. There's an audiobook, an ebook, and a paperback. Nourish Yourself Whole. And my website too. I'm not just trying to sell the book. So on my website, nourishyourselfwhole.com, I have a free ebook, which has all the pillars, and it's not as in depth as the book, but if somebody just didn't want to buy the book, wanted to get started, you can get the free ebook, and there's an MP3 you can listen to. It's just like an hour long, and get some of the basics. I've got lots of free resources, and like my favorite healthy-ish cheats, like all the fun stuff that, when I want to be bad, I'm going to get something that's a little better than the really bad stuff. So I have all my favorite stuff listed, and links to find it on Amazon and other places. Also, I'm on social media. If people, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's all at Mathew Albracht. Good luck spelling Albracht. But you can Google it and find it. Yeah. So lots of resources that are available for folks.
Thank you, and all those will be actually on the description of the show. So
Great.
Watch this whether on YouTube or the channel, or on the iHealth channel, iRadio, everywhere. The podcast, you will have the actual description, the link to the site, and the name of the book. So check it out, and definitely take advantage of the resource and all resources that are within, and see what it does for you. But I mean, if you're listening and you're watching, we owe it to ourselves, as always, to live a healthy and happy life. And again, health is wealth, and so without health, nothing else matters. So it's just a matter of adjusting, and sometimes it's difficult, but we can all make those changes. And so any last words, comments, Mathew, just to the audience before we end the show today?
Well, just you're worth feeling better, and just whatever you do, take something on. Like I went from a lot of health challenges and made changes and feel like so much better. It's such a nice way to live, and invest in yourself, And then the only other thing I would say is just thank you, Hurricane, for a great conversation, and your intellect, and your just putting these beautiful ideas out into the world. It's a great gift to humanity. So thank you.
Well, thank you for the time. Thank you for the advice, and really for your expertise here, because that is exactly what we need, just to hear more of this, And so with that, we're coming to the end of the show, folks. Thank you for watching the iHealth channel and listening on iHealth Radio. Hurricane H here with Mathew Albracht, and it was a great show. Thank you. We'll talk at the next one. Ciao, ciao. Have a great day. Bye bye.